Dogfight. That's the nothing personal word of the day. It is Thursday, July 3rd, 2025. And today's episode is brought to you by DraftKings. DraftKings, the crown is yours. We've got a dogfight in the American League East. And after winning the first 3 games of a 4-game series, the Toronto Blue Jays have caught the Yankees. The Yankees have been in first place since the middle of April, and with the 7-game lead, everyone assumed in New York the Yankees and Mets were off to the races. Meanwhile, both of them are now stuck at go. What's gone on with the Yankees? What has caused the Toronto Blue Jays to all of a sudden even have an opening to have caught the Yankees? What is happening where the American League East is now the most competitive division in all of baseball? 3 teams within half a game. There's no other division that is even close to that. As a matter of fact, the other closest division is the NL Central, and there you've got the Cubs, Brewers, and Cardinals. Those top 3 teams are within 5 games, but 3 within half a game as we head to the July 4th holiday weekend, as we head 28 days from today to the trade deadline. And you can feel the heat in New York, and I'm not talking just temperature. I'm talking the pressure that is currently on Brian Cashman and Aaron Boone. I'm talking about the fact that I may be 1, 2, 3, maybe 4, 5 years late in my prediction and wait to seize that something has to happen in New York, or there's going to be a change at general manager or at manager. The thing with the Yankees is that they are going with a squad right now that is not their best opportunity to win. It doesn't give them their best chance to win. And when you're playing well and you've got Fried pitching like an ace, then you can cover up a lot of the problems. But remember we talked about Devers and the fact that Devers didn't want to move positions, and so Boston traded him to the Giants, and now both those teams are struggling? Well, in New York, there's a player. His name is Jazz Chisholm, the player they got from the Miami Marlins. He has been an absolute state trooper. He has been more than willing to do anything the Yankees ask. You want to play some outfield? You want to play some second? We're going to play it second. That's what he was told. And then all of a sudden they have to play him at third because DJ LeMahieu can't play third. He'd rather play second. So the Yankees, in order to assuage DJ LeMahieu's bad arm and his bad hurt feelings, are playing Jazz in a position that he shouldn't be in, even though when he played third last year, he was fine. Not gold glove material, but good enough. And his offense is good enough to be a good third or fourth option on a good team. But when you're sacrificing defense the way the Yankees do, you'd think that they'd have a memory of last year's playoffs. You'd think that it would occur to them that pitching and defense are actually what's going to get them their first ring since 2009. But instead, you've got a team that is just floundering. But in order for that to matter, there needs to be a hot team below you. And that's what the Blue Jays have become. Our esteemed producer, Matthew Coca, had Vladimir Guerrero as his MVP pick before the season started and acknowledged sometime during April, as Coca would say, he's cooked, I'm cooked. Well, guess what? While we were sleeping, Vladimir Guerrero and the Toronto Blue Jays have figured it out because they are rewarding their front office who kept the band back together and decided we're going to sign Guerrero. We are going to, for the most part, run it back, and we're going to see if we can actually win games, get into October. And it did not start very promising at all. As a matter of fact, when we were doing shows, which we do with Jeff Blair and Kevin Barker, we were basically putting an end to this season for all intents and purposes. But the best thing about baseball is not only the length of the season, but also when you have a chance to play the team you're catching, you get to win twice for every one game you win. You may think I'm crazy. Maybe I'm tired. Maybe I've got highway patrolmen in my mind. But in fact, When the Blue Jays are playing the Yankees, they can catch them down 3, 4-game series. You can end that series up 1. You don't need to worry about the team you're catching winning or losing. If you're playing them, you control it. So what did the Blue Jays do? They came in, and since June 3rd, they and the Rays are leading there with a record of 17-9 for the Blue Jays, 17-10 for the Rays. You combine that with the Yankees going not a terrible 11-16, not horrific by any stretch. You don't want any months below 500, but generally you will. But the way it's happening is the problem. So what do you do if you're the Yankees? How do you fix this? Do you do a players-only meeting? The Mets tried that. How'd that go? Do you have Brian Cashman go down and address the troops? Do you have Aaron Boone get ejected from more games? I have a suggestion. One of the hardest things to do is to move away from a player who you love, a player who you think is a clubhouse leader, a player who you have a memory of as a championship part of a team, as a player who you depended on. But when you look at the field, when you look at the results, you realize that you're carrying that player for the wrong reason. And yes, I've carried players for the wrong reason, and I understand the mentality because it's the tomorrow mentality. The tomorrow mentality is fascinating. It's no matter what you see today, you say to yourself, tomorrow will be different. Tomorrow will be the day our team comes together. Tomorrow will be the day that our losing streak ends. Tomorrow will be the day that we'll use, since X day, the team has the second best record in baseball and the best record in their division. Because those stats that we give you, best record since June 1st, worst record since May 17th, it's all based on a date that you choose to make your point. It's almost like an economic feasibility study for a stadium. You choose to have someone hired who's going to say exactly what you want him to say. Stats are the same. You say they don't lie, but in fact, they can lie because you can manipulate them. So the Yankees are looking at DJ LeMahieu and saying, we've got tomorrow. Why don't we wait? Well, I'm telling you why. Because if you designate DJ LeMahieu right now, you're doing two things. One, you're opening up an active roster spot for anyone who can fog up a mirror, who's going to be more effective and impactful on the field than DJ. Two, you're showing your team, because even though he's popular, you're showing your team this is not about who's cool in the cafeteria during lunch. This isn't about who's interesting in the community or who is a great ambassador to our team. Forget all that. This is about one thing only. It's about winning games. And eventually, when you've got a player with 1 year left, which is what LeMahieu has after this year, 1 year at $15 million. We've seen teams eat a lot more than that. We're going to talk about a team that's eaten a lot more than that in another league, but we see it all over. Dead cap money in the NFL, released players in waived players in the NBA, released or designated players in MLB. You sometimes just have to eat it. And it stinks when you're in the front office and you're forced to eat a contract because you're associated with the contract. You have to go into a meeting with your owner. You have to go through budgets where it's line by line payroll. When you designate a player who's got years left of a deal, you have to look at that player's name as part of your payroll, and it hurts every time. You're embarrassed every time, and you avoid it at all costs, which is why you need the owner on board. Do you think if Brian Cashman went to Hal Steinbrenner today and said, we're in danger here. We're in danger of making Samson right. It's possible, forget winning the division. We may not even make the playoffs. We got to do something, and I mean now. We're going to trade for some infield help. We're going to have to do that. We're going to need more pitching because we're not going in with Fried and Rodon. We're going to have to do better. We need to find better at the back end of the bullpen, notwithstanding Devin Williams. Yeah, we're going to need to do better. You go in and you designate DJ LeMahieu, which is why, Coco, I am willing to say that even with the Yankees at a plus 103 run differential and the Blue Jays at a plus 6, even with the Yankees going to play the Mets, so somebody, here's the funny part, Coco, someone's got to win. Hard to imagine, but it's the best thing that happened to New York because someone's going to actually win a game, but there's going to be a whole fan base totally despondent because definitionally someone's going to lose. So I'm going to give you an official wait to see when I tell you something's going to happen. If it does, great. If it doesn't, fine. We'll revisit it. DJ LeMahieu is going to get designated for assignment by the New York Yankees. Wait to see. Before we get into what happened with the Dodgers yesterday, I want to do a quick on-field shout-out to Clayton Kershaw, who got his 3,000th strikeout yesterday against the White Sox. One of only 4 lefties in the history of baseball to have 3,000 strikeouts. Quick, can you name them? You're definitely going to come up with CC Sabathia going into the Hall of Fame this year. I would think if you're a fan of the game, you know that number 51 is getting his number retired, and I don't mean Ichiro, although him too. Randy, like meeting Pedro for the first time, and you may forget because of his injuries, he is so good. First ballot Hall of Famer. Congrats, Clayton. It's being overshadowed, however, completely overshadowed by something that happened with the Dodgers organization. You may find this hard to imagine, as I did when I read this, no matter what time zone you're in. There's a group called America First Legal. You can imagine what America First is. America First Legal. Who's going to argue with America First? No matter where you are. You can be in Italy. You can be praying for spirits in the night, and still you could think that America's first. But when America First Legal gets together, and they're a conservative outfit, and you know that they've been founded by the deputy White House chief of staff, a guy named Stephen Miller, who you've never heard of unless you have, you would not believe what they did yesterday. They filed a civil rights complaint with the EEOC, that's the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, against, wait for it, the Los Angeles Dodgers. Their claim is that the Los Angeles Dodgers, by having a DEI component to their team, to their front office, by being forward-facing about wanting to hire and develop women or people of color, that they are actually violating equal protections. And there are many people in the audience who may think, wow, it's really hard on white people right now. They're being totally discriminated against, maybe totally in favor. But I ask you, as you're going through this topic and listening to exactly what they're alleging, they are alleging, and this is the America First Legal outfit. This complaint says that on the website, when there are job opportunities that say that we'll hire anyone, they're in fact not hiring anyone. They are focusing on women. They're focusing on diversity, focusing on equality, and that's a straight violation. They actually wrote, the Los Angeles Dodgers, this is part of the complaint. The LA Dodgers and Guggenheim Partners, you might as well go after Mark Walter, the owner of the Dodgers. The LA Dodgers admit that race, color, sex, and national origin play a motivating factor in their considerations for employment decisions. Yet these considerations, which both entities admit, entities meaning Mark Walter and the Dodgers, both entities admit are embedded in their culture and day-to-day operations, are patently illegal. What does it mean? It means that what the president's doing is going after companies, whether it's Disney, whether it's teams, whoever you want to say. And what they are doing is they are saying that get rid of your DEI programs. They're not allowed. All of the efforts that we've made to try to bring equality, forget equal pay at Wimbledon. We're not talking about that. Anytime that you say that you are looking to fill a quota or to increase the number of women in your front office, all things that we tried to do and wanted to do, increase the number of African Americans in the front office, the number of Latinos in the front office, all of that means that it's at the expense of someone else who would be equally qualified, who is not of those either brown, black, or a woman. Well, as someone who did a lot of hiring, and a lot of firing. The reason why you want a front office to represent you as a company and represent the community you're in is because it's good business. If you are in a place like Los Angeles and you don't have any people, any Mexicans working for you, people who speak Spanish, women, men, LGBTQ, if you don't have that, how exactly are you doing business? It's actually one of the greatest and oldest principles that was ignored for so long in such a silly way, where it was the same people looking the same way at the head of companies that had customers that didn't look like them, think like them, or act like them. Is it now that we should not hire young people because we're trying to attract young people to our business, or a younger demographic because now we are being ageist? It is a fact of life that when you are 57 years old, that you may not be as attractive to a company as if you're 37 years old. Why? Because the 37-year-olds have a longer career track, number one, unless you have nothing personal. And number two, they have a different language, a different mentality, a different sensibility about your product and what you're selling and what you are wanting your customers to know about what you do. And if we think it's good policy to force companies to ignore their customers, then America won't be first. They won't even be on the podium. And if you think for 1 second that the complaint filed with the EEOC had nothing to do with what happened with the Dodgers only a few weeks ago, remember when Stan Kasten came out and he talked about what was going on with ice, and there was a problem with ice at Dodger Stadium, and they didn't let ice in? And then you remember the Dodgers said, we're going to do something, we're not sure what, and they gave $1 million to immigrant groups because of what's happening in LA. Do you think that was for business? Was it for show? Was it to go against Trump? Was it to appease the Democratic Party? What would be the reason that the Dodgers are taking a stand and are taking a position in this issue? Because it's impacting their community, for better, for worse, whether you agree with it or disagree with it. You have to know where you're doing business. Why do you think a team in middle America, and I just say the Milwaukee Brewers just for fun, but the Milwaukee Brewers are not donating $1 million to immigrant groups right now because there's no problem with Germans coming in at the moment. And the reality is that if I were running the Dodgers, I'd be doing the exact same thing. I did it in Miami, where we had to have people speaking Spanish, had to have people from Cuba, had to have people who I may have disagreed with politically or agreed with politically, had to have them in your front office, had to have them on your team. Although in baseball, it's easy to be diverse because of the quality of player. I would just say that the selective complaint following is something I'd prefer to stay away from. And if you think that there is not PR involved in this, if you think that there's a reason that this is happening, Mark Walter, who is becoming the face of LA, Mark Walter, who is now going to have the Dodgers and the Lakers, if you think that this is not some sort of play to try to appease a base of people who are not understanding the reality of what companies go through day to day, or what families or people go through day to day, then you're not paying close attention. If you are going through websites, and we covered this when government websites were scrubbing parts of history, we've talked about this with critical race theory and all the different things. There's one thing you know, as a nice Jewish boy from New York, that if you don't pay attention to the past, you are condemned to relive it. It is so critical to pay attention to what's happening when it happened and how it impacts what's happening now. So how does it end? If it's just a PR ploy, the EEOC will hear it, drop it. But what if the EEOC has other concerns? What if they're doing things like some of the universities are doing in order to kowtow to what the president and the cabinet want? Is it possible that the EEOC would look at this and say, interesting, this complaint is totally valid? Do you realize the ripple effect That's not putting a pebble in a river. That's dropping a boulder in a river. Because if you think the Dodgers are the only baseball team or basketball team or football team or hockey team or business selling widgets of any kind who engage in these practices, you're just wrong. Therefore, you go after the Dodgers and you prevail. You may have people change their websites. You may have people scrub programs as though that's going to cure it. But if you have people who want to make money in business or a public company that you want shares to outperform index funds, you have to have a business that reflects the community in which they do business. I don't know how to say it any more clearly. A result that would have the EEOC prevail and this complaint prevail, and the EEOC allow this to prevail, it will have a quashing impact on business in a way that we're not properly forecasting. If I am the Dodgers, I am not acquiescing. I am not changing one thing at all. In fact, I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to double down as a way to explain that I'm in the right. By the way, my franchise may be worth $10 billion. I assume you have comments on this. I want them. All you have to do is call me. Now, you can get on Twitter at David P. Samson. Be my guest. Or you can call the following number. 631-377-4869. That number again, 631, for those of you listening to the show and not watching, it's on the screen. If you want to talk to me, so you want to talk to Samson, every Wednesday, the second hour of our show is going to be you. I need your voicemails because they're funny and they give me great ideas for topics. 631-DPS-4869. Did you hear that, Coco? Did you hear me stretch? That was me stretching the phone number, the 631-377-4869. I love the word stretch. It's something I don't do. 25 marathons deep. Nope, not a stretcher. What I saw the Milwaukee Bucks do yesterday, put the sta in stretch. You didn't think I could transition there, did you? There's a little bit of news out of Milwaukee. Giannis and Lillard are no more. Dame and Giannis, what a successful partnership they had. They played 2 playoff games together over the last 2 years. It's been unreal. The Milwaukee Bucks have been trying to figure out, does Giannis want to stay or does he want to go? Or is he going to drive all night to a different town? The Bucks are trying to keep him as much as possible. And so they said, we have an idea. Let's waive your good friend Dame Lillard. Let's pay out the $113 million he's owed, but instead of paying it over 2 years, we're going to stretch it into 5 years. And then we'll have the money to sign Miles Turner. Let me break it down. 1, Dame Lillard is out with an Achilles tear. He's not playing next year. So the Bucks were paying him $50 million next year not to play. Not ideal. Giannis wants to win. Again, 1 championship good, 2 better. Salary cap maneuverability for the Bucks, de minimis, 0. Big problem. What do? There's a provision in the CBA that allows you to release a player, literally waive a player, get rid of him. And instead of paying him over the remaining term of his contract, you can stretch it out to as many as 5 years, up to 15% of the salary cap. Which means what the Milwaukee Bucks did, and what they will be staring straight in the face for the next 5 years, is Dame Lillard being paid by them not to play, and his money will count toward the cap. Does this sound a little like football to you? Does it sound like dead cap money? Because it shouldn't. Don't forget, dead cap money is not actually cash given to players. It's cash that can't be given to other players. In the NBA, dead cap money is actually cash given to an actual human being. Lillard's contract, fully guaranteed, collusion-free. He'll get the full $113 million, and he can play for anyone he wants. Any team in the NBA can sign Lillard today, and he'll make the $113 million over 5 years from the Bucks and whatever it is another team will want to pay him. Dame Lillard, I would hope, is calling up the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, maybe even trying to figure out if the Eagle River Times will run an ad saying, thank you, Wes Edens, thank you for allowing me to make this money twice. Meanwhile, the Bucks said, how about if we call Miles Turner? Now, we heard on Nothing Personal that Miles Turner was going back to the Pacers because there was a breaking news alert during the finals that we covered that said, Miles Turner, the Pacers are going to go into the apron over the luxury tax for the first time in 20 years. Herb Simon, you're the man. Then there was a game in the finals when Tyrese Halliburton said, I think I just tore my Achilles, which means I'm out for a year, which means the Pacers can't win next year. And the Simons said, I think we shan't go forward. I think we shan't pay Miles Turner $20 or $30 million. Miles Turner said, no problem. I'm not going to go full Craig Counsell, but I'm happy to go to Milwaukee. $107 million 4-year deal. Staggering to me that Indiana was so smart. Why would you go into luxury tax when you know that you don't have an opportunity to win? Do you think the Celtics are the only team that can do it? The Celtics get rid of Kristaps, get rid of Drew Holiday. Without Jason Tatum, whose Achilles is torn, they know they've got a problem next year. So what do? You make it better. You don't want to pay a huge luxury tax when you don't have concomitant revenue that you can sort of budget for, even though you shouldn't. And I'm talking about postseason revenue and then an increase in local revenue going forward. So it was a perfect scenario for the Bucks to have an opportunity to get someone, good defender Miles Turner. We saw that little mid-range shot that Stan Van Gundy will not allow to be a three-pointer. And we know that he can play defense. Could it be an upgrade over Dame? It is. Miles Turner next year is way better than Lillard because Lillard's not playing. So the Milwaukee Bucks get to say to Giannis, we are doing this for you. Don't ask for a trade. We don't want to move you. And the people have responded. Meaning they don't care. They don't think the Bucks got any better. The Bucks are still 6th best odds in the East, according to sports books. You can go to DraftKings right now. Odds subject to change. A quick one before we go to break, Coca, is when we would make a move, we would look at the futures, even though we calculated it differently, and we would say, how many more wins does this get us when we make an offseason move? What does it do to our odds of winning the World Series? Which way did it move? What are the people saying? Well, the sports books are talking, and so are the people. And this move, getting Miles Turner to the Bucks, didn't do anything. They're 6th best to win the East, which means that Giannis may go up to Wes Edens and say, hey, Wes, nice try. Appreciate the effort. But A, I'm going to miss Dame. That really doesn't matter as much. But B, Miles Turner at $107 million? Come on, man. Don't need it. Don't want it. We come back. It's Thursday. We get to review a top 100 movie. And then we get to talk about something that's happening in New York. Go, New York. Go, New York. Go. We'll get to it after a short break. Welcome back to Nothing Personal. It's David Samson coming at you live. Right here from the corner of Thunder Road and State Street. Hoping that you will watch any of the movies in my top 100, hoping that you are a subscriber to the Nothing Personal with David Samson YouTube channel, and hoping, because hope is a good thing, that you're downloading, rating, reviewing, and telling your friends about this show, which is now 2 hours a day, up from 1. It's our 2nd month at 2 hours, and what a month it was. And each day I watch a movie, so each day I do a review. By reviewing a movie over 100 Thursdays, you're going to see every movie in my top 100 list. And I get to review because I hope you watch The Social Network, which is number 97 on my list. And I watched it again this week, and I think it's going to move up when I do the list again. Not because there's going to be a Social Network 2, which Aaron Sorkin's writing, and we don't know about Jesse Eisenberg yet. We don't know about Andrew Garfield yet, though I don't think he'd be a part of it because that character's gone, totally toasted. It didn't age well having Armie Hammer playing the Winklevoss twins, but it was cool nonetheless. The story of Facebook, the story of Mark Zuckerberg, is a story that is captured so perfectly, and I want to spoil the end. Because it's an older movie, you should have seen it. It turns out that Facebook, call me crazy, it turns into a very big company. But do you know what money doesn't do? Whether you're a billionaire, a millionaire, whether you're in debt up to your retina, it doesn't change who you are. It may change the things you buy. It may change the way you perceive yourself or the way other people perceive you. But Mark Zuckerberg, as the character that he is, as Jesse Eisenberg so perfectly captured in this movie, the end of the movie with Mark Zuckerberg hitting refresh to see whether or not an old girlfriend would take his friend request. Man, is that relatable. Make sure you go watch The Social Network. Well, random number generator, we're going to come up with our next Thursday movie of the top 100. Coca, hit that button. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Boom. I actually want to watch that again. That's about 2:45. I've only seen it twice. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Quentin, Pitt, Quali. I'm going to watch that. It's ranked number 44. That'll be next Thursday. If you're looking for a movie to watch that I'll review Monday, I'm going to watch and review Echo Valley. It's the new Apple TV movie with Sydney Sweeney, fresh from Italy. No Coca, haven't seen her. Bezos' Wedding, and Julianne Moore. Red Halsman won championships for the New York Knicks. Two of them, 1970 and 1973. Pat Riley did not win championships with the New York Knicks. Nor did Hubie Brown or Rick Pitino. Nor did anybody else. Ever in the entire franchise history. So, Tom Thibodeau was the coach, and the Knicks were doing great. They had Karl Anthony Towns and Jalen Brunson and Jalen Brunson's dad. They traded 69 draft picks and got Malik Bridges so he could shoot from the elbow and play good defense and make everyone excited when they beat Boston. Title? Nope. Thibodeau. Fired. Coaching search. Disaster. Will you be my coach? Mikal Bridges. What did I call him? Michael? Malik. God. Oh, was I thinking Beasley? Sorry. 4'8", 69. Bridges. Good from the elbow. Good defense. You got some good memories from this postseason run. But all those draft picks, come on. Will you be my coach? Are you my mother? Are you my coach? No, no, no. The first ever female coach in the history of the NBA? We can't violate anything and worry about an EEOC complaint. We're going to go with Mike Brown. We're going to go with experience. We're going to go with a guy with rings as an assistant coach. We're going to go with a guy who did coach a team in the finals and lost. LeBron swept Spurs. We're going to go with a guy who is just coaching the Sacramento Kings, and he's won multiple coaches of the year and then got canned this December when the Kings started 13-18. And for whatever reason, they said, oh, that's not the kind of growth we thought. So the New York Knicks, is it a booby prize bringing in Mike Brown? How do you think Mike Brown feels? Well, having hired very many managers who knew they were not the first choice because there were other managers rumored, in fact, true, that we were looking at, didn't get. When managers are brought in when they know they're not the top choice, or coaches are brought in when they know they're not the top choice, do you know how long they spend thinking about that or worrying about that? About -5 seconds. Mike Brown doesn't care that Jason Kidd wasn't allowed to be the coach, or the numerous other coaches who were asked. Doesn't matter to him. He's coming in to coach this Knicks team and try to make history. I'd like you to imagine, just for a second, the interview with Jimmy Dolan. because this hire is a Jim Dolan hire. You'll read about Leon Rose. You'll read about the process. You'll read about how great it is. You'll read about all of that. I told you when the Knicks had an opening that they were going to hire a coach with experience because this was all about Dolan. Tibbs wasn't fired because the players were upset with him. They were playing too much. Tibbs was fired because Dolan thought that he was going to be the steward to bring a title back to New York. And they didn't even make it to the finals. And it's so brilliantly and eloquently put by Stan Van Gundy the other day, when you take a step forward, there's also the risk of taking a step back. And so the excuse that we make as a front office, hey, we're trying to make a step forward, we're trying to do something positive here, there's a risk of taking a step back. But owners don't think that way. When Dolan is interviewing coaches, he's not ever asking, how do you protect us from getting worse? What are you going to do so that we make the first round next year? It never comes up in the interview. What comes up is, what are you going to do to win the finals? What are you going to do not just to get there, but to win it? Hard enough to get there because the Knicks haven't gotten there in a quarter century. But forget it. I want to win. So during the course of the interview, Dolan is talking about his experience, and Mike Brown is saying, I can handle big names. I've been around LeBron. I've been around everybody. No worries, no sweat. The limelight in, media, I'm fine. You want to do a little PR practice? We'll do that sometimes. Put the managers in front of a scrum of people, asking questions to see how they do. Eyewash. If it's not the real thing, it's not the real thing. You can't invent. While I do believe in media training, we are not looking at a manager and saying, oh, is he good with the media before and after the game? Because that's going to impact whether we're going to hire him. Mike Brown came into that interview and said, Jimmy, you're my man. Whatever you want, I'm in. Now, of course, they're going to claim total independence. No involvement when it gets announced officially. Jim Dolan, he interviewed him, but this was a Leon choice. This was front office all the way. The players are going to come out excited, but don't you be fooled. The reason why Jim Dolan was involved in this, as he is in everything, is that this is the single most important hire of his ownership life, because he is 2 steps backwards from no longer having a shot with this current expensive core, and he'll have to start again. And he really does not have that kind of time. Not because he's old, but because the goodwill of him being a total lunatic, but people forgiving it and just spending money hand over fist at the Garden, that eventually turns around and you're back to sifting through smoke in the blue seats. And you can bet your sweet bippy that Dolan said to Mike Brown, there is no reason in the world that we can't make the finals. Take a look at this Eastern Conference. I mean, the Celtics are done. The Pacers are done. We beat the Celtics already with Tatum. We were up 3-1. With this team we've put together, there's nowhere to go except the finals. Can you do it? Mike Brown says, don't be ridiculous. I've heard managers say this. I love this. I got this. And then you convince yourself, you get convinced, you get together, you shake hands, you smile, you pretend it was your plan from the get-go, and then you go play. And the way it ends, 99.9% of the time, is not with the World Championship. And another press conference where another coach gets fired, you're back there trying to figure it out yet again. Total despondency. Do I think Mike Brown, with his combined coaching record of 454 and 304, will be the head coach of the Knicks Dreams? Do I think that Mike Brown is going to etch his name in history next to Red Holzman? Rest in peace. Love you, 613. That would seem hard to believe. So, wait to see is my second, because we didn't have one the other day. So I'm doing a second wait to see today, Coca. Get ready. Separate. Put it in the document at davidsamsonpodcast.com, where we have a tracking document where I officially say wait to sees, and then we revisit. The New York Knicks next season will not advance to the conference finals. which means it will be a step backwards, not a step forward. Wait to see. Nothing personal pick of the day. Nothing personal pick of the day is presented by DraftKings. DraftKings, the crown is yours. We have a big series coming up in the National League West with the Giants and the Diamondbacks, and it continues where the Giants are trying to figure out a way to get Rafael Devers hot and to get the team maybe a tiny wee bit closer to the Dodgers. Meanwhile, the Diamondbacks are saying to themselves, I can barely see the Padres, Giants, and Dodgers anymore. We got to do something, and the way you do it is you beat the Giants. So naturally, given how the season's been going for the D-backs, the nothing personal pick of the day presented by DraftKings is the Giants and Robbie Ray over the Diamondbacks. The Diamondbacks are in an interesting spot right now, and their general manager had something to say which resonated with me because I've spoken to you about it. He said, I want this team to put us in a position to buy. I want this team to put us in a position to be right beneath where we need to be. He was talking to the show when he did this. We don't have to be all the way back in a playoff position or even ahead. We just need to be within a distance that we feel like we're being responsible in adding to this team. Well, here's the problem with that statement, and I love it. It's what I've talked about, where we want to reward the clubhouse on July 31st. We want the clubhouse to believe that they've earned our help, and then we want to give it to them, and then we want to be paid back by the clubhouse with improved performance and ride it all the way to October. The problem is every team is saying the same thing. Every front office is saying the same thing. And not everyone will be able to buy successfully because even with expanded wild card, not everyone's going to make the playoffs. Right now, the Diamondbacks are only 3 games back of a wild card spot. For me, I'm sending out invoices. The magic number is 5. If you're within 5 games of a wild card on September 1st, you get to send out invoices like you're hosting the damn World Series. And then you get to keep everyone's money until they roll it into next season or have to jump through more hoops than plates spun by I blew the whole thing. Is it Red Panda? That's not what she's called. What is the name of the woman who just broke her wrist at halftime of the championship cup with the fever? Coca? I have so much pasta in my system that I just can't think of it. And I can't hear Coca. He may be gone. The whole thing is off the rails. The Wi-Fi may not be working. And I'm going to be... Oh, I am right. It's Red Panda. I don't even know why I mentioned Red Panda. Okay. What were we even talking about? Oh, the fact that every team wants to add because they want to say their clubhouse put us in a position. Except if you look at where the Diamondbacks are and you look at the fact that they lost Corbin Burns, they're doing what's called the DA, the delusion ad, where no matter what happens against the Giants, no matter what happens before July 31st, Ken Kendrick, the owner, is going to say, you know what? We got to do this. We got to add. We just got a ton of public money. We're renovating Chase Field. Let's chase Amy one more time. Here we go. It's not going to matter for the Diamondbacks, and that's the frustrating part. So, what about if you can buy and sell? Because the Diamondbacks are the perfect team to do it. They've got a bunch of players who other teams are going to want. And you have a way to actually add to your clubhouse, do sort of a Buster Posey when you trade for Devers, and then actually be Craig Breslow and say, no, this was good for now and later, and I don't mean just suck on that. Because what the D-backs could do, you trade away some of your expiring contracts, and you do it under the auspice of, hey, we're still in the race, but we lost our number 1 starter. We're sort of scuffling. But you get to go to your clubhouse with some ads, even though they're really replacements, not ads. And you get to look at them with a straight face on July 31st. And you say, we bought. I think it's hugely responsible to both buy and sell. And I think that if you are the GM of a team and you're going to be public about wanting to buy and wanting your clubhouse to buy, you should be okay with publicly saying you're selling. We would do it to the players all the time. We'd go down in the clubhouse in June and say, dudes, you don't play better. We're going to have to move you. And we would tell the media off the record and on the record, yeah, of course we're taking calls. So I absolutely agree and appreciate what Hazen is doing. And how does that end? I'll tell you how it ends. The Diamondbacks, they will not be able to make the playoffs. There's just they don't have enough. They don't have enough. Not for lack of trying. Let's get to another nothing personal pick of the day. Is this one sponsored by DraftKings too? Even though we don't have the exact line and we don't even know if it's happening, we're going to do it anyway just because I know some of those guys are now listening because we do 2 hours a day. Nothing personal pick of the day presented by DraftKings. DraftKings, the crown is yours. It's Corbin Day on Monday. Maybe. We don't know for certain, but we think it's Sunday, not Monday. I thought it was Monday. Okay, Coca. Now I got to do it again. Fine. 4869. Nothing personal pick of the day. Sunday is Corbin Day, and you know what that means. We're taking the Padres over the Rangers. Now, he's not officially as the announced starter, but he's going to start. So if Corbin starts, our official nothing personal pick of the day for Sunday is the Padres over the Texas Rangers. We had a pick on Tuesday, which was our last live show, and we nailed it. We had the Brewers plus 104 and Peralta over Clay Holmes and the Mets. We told you that the Mets wanted to start July strong, and they were going to really lose the game to the Brewers. The problem is it got postponed. And what that means is that that pick just disappears. So we can't take credit for it, even though I should mention that Peralta and the Brewers did beat Holmes and the Mets when they played the day after, which was yesterday. But I can't get credit for it, so we're still 87 and 86. I've got a special extra pick, a non-sponsored pick on this random Thursday. Just a little bit of mustard, a tiny little thing, like a quarter of a unit. My main man, Joey Chestnut, he's back, baby. If you don't associate the July 4th holiday with getting absolute sick to your stomach as you watch people down buns, hot dogs, dip them in water, shove them in their mouth, and you don't think of Stand By Me and throwing up pie, then I don't know who you are. Joey Chestnut put all of the sponsor conflicts aside and realized I sort of do need Nathan's as much as Nathan's needs me, and he's back. And he is minus 1,800 to win, which means they expect him to be there. They expect him to perform. They expect him to crush, which he will. But at minus 1,800, now, I grant you, minus 1,800, you still win because you win. You just win way less. I would just do a little tiny unit because you're going to be watching it. You got to watch it. It's July 4th. After the break, it's hour 2. And hour 2, we get a visit from Boog Sciambi. Stick around. We will be right back. Welcome back to the second hour of Nothing Personal. And we are delighted to welcome Boog Sciambi, the TV voice of the Chicago Cubs, one of my oldest, nearest, and dearest in my career in baseball. Welcome to the show, Boog. How are you?
I'm great. It's good to see you, David. What's happening?
I do appreciate that you're here and just calling you the TV voice of the Cubs. To me, you'll always be the voice that I associate with the Marlins with World Championships. But now that you're with the Cubs, I want to talk Cubs because we're seeing good Cubs pretty
Yeah.
much this entire year. And it started in the offseason with what many considered a strange and interesting, amazing trade getting Kyle Tucker. What's it been like having Kyle Tucker? Is he really the reason behind the resurgence and the phenomenal offense that the Cubs have?
I think it starts with Kyle Tucker because you're talking about one of the top seven-ish hitters in all of baseball, the ability to control the strike zone, the power. He doesn't strike out. And that is really where you stop, the sentence and reflect in terms of baseball in 2025. If you can get your hands on a guy or guys who slug with contact, who slug but don't strike out, it makes your offense really potent. And he's basically like Soto. So, not only that, but he steals bases. So to put, most nights the Cubs have the best hitter on the field. And so to put him in that lineup, and then I would say you need to have surprises, right? You need to have guys that kind of come out of nowhere. And whereas they thought Pico Armstrong would be a magnificent defender, he has been. I don't know that anybody saw the slug coming, and he's turned into, as good a center fielder as there is in baseball. He'll be the starting center fielder for the National League this year, and he deserves it. But he's clobbered right-handed pitching. So you add a guy, and then you almost, in Pete Crow Armstrong, with the way he's played, it's like you're adding a totally different player. No one's plugging PCA in for, a 500 slugging percentage. So there's that. And then they've gotten an uptick in performance from Seiya Suzuki, and it's formed what is a good lineup. The other component that's fun is they're athletic. So they steal bases, and they steal bases at a high rate. So they have the second most stolen bases in baseball and the second highest stolen base percentage in baseball. They're stealing it at about 85%. And at home, Wrigley plays as a pitcher's park a lot of times. So the wind blows in. So at home, they steal twice as many bases, and on the road, they hit more homers.
I want to get back because you said something, and I just want to confirm to the audience you are not Kyle Tucker's agent of record. Is that correct?
I am not. I am not. But it should start probably with a five. Is what I.
So,
Sorry, did I say that out loud?
when you drop a Soto, that gives some people PTSD, especially Cubs fans.
Right.
Because are you suggesting that there is some sort of contract? Because Kyle Tucker, in theory, if the Cubs let him go, and we're going to talk about that next, with what is the pressure that they feel to re-sign him, either now, which I don't think is possible, or when free agency starts, or otherwise it becomes a rental. And by the way, the Astros have done great since trading Kyle Tucker, one of
Yeah.
those trades that works for both teams. But you're valuing Kyle Tucker in the Soto range. You just said a five. So you're saying $500 million.
No, so what I'm saying is that like there's two separate conversations here. I'm saying that he's very similar to the level of player that Juan Soto is. He's 2 years older, so that changes the contract constraints. What I am saying is he is absolutely a superior player to Vladimir Guerrero, and he got 500 million. So between 760 and 500, if I'm Kyle Tucker, I'm like, yeah, somewhere in there.
And you believe that being around the team, being around the clubhouse, is that really where the Ricketts family is? Is Tom, are they thinking about that for Kyle Tucker?
Um, I, it'd be hard for me to imagine. I think I don't know. I don't have a sense for how like the chances that he'd come back, but I don't. I think look, for the most part, they did the Jason Hayward deal, and that did not work out. And that was in the prime of of his career, and when they were winning. They gave Swanson the big deal. I wouldn't say that they've shown like an inclination towards, dipping into those giant contracts.
Well, what we're saying is when they do, it often doesn't work out, but there's a unique
Not
pressure
often.
here.
It's just the one gives them PTSD.
Well, we all have that. Every team has that, but you keep doing it because it's a funny thing that a fan base has where they think that their team's the only team that either lets free agents go or has bad contracts or dead money. All 30 front offices feel the same. But when you are the Cubs and you're having a year like this, we don't know where it'll end. Right now, they have, they're fighting with the Brewers for the division, but there is a good chance they can get to the LCS. Can they get past the Mets, Dodgers? Maybe. Phillies? Maybe. But the more they advance, the more pressure there is because they got the World Series in 16, but it turned out not to be the dynasty that I think Theo had hoped for. But if you have Kyle for a year, you then have to go back because you don't want PCA as the centerpiece of your team. You need him as your second star, don't you think?
I still think we're at a place where you can't realistically say what Pete Crow Armstrong is going to end up being. The whole thing in analyzing what he's done this year is, I mean, the Cubs traded for him. He had less than 30 professional at bats. So part of why this has been so unexpected is no baseline has been set. So I can't sit here and say what Pete Crow Armstrong is going to look like. I'd use even your argument against you from the standpoint of maybe they let Kyle Tucker go. Please see the Astros. You know what I mean? So like so one player, look, I think then now there's also the component of you're a signature franchise. You want to keep guys and there's legacy. And sometimes you just want to get the player. And sometimes to get the player, there's a price. It's not, in today's world, we sit there and do it's good value at this, it's not good value at this. And then every once in a while, and I respect this, it's just we got to get this guy. So we're getting, and like that's what happened with the Mets. The Mets were like, we want this guy, we're getting this guy.
Well, that's bringing up the Soto name again. And you can't have many guys like that in the game because that's what causes contracts to be a little higher or a little less comfortable than they should be, and it causes problems more so on the pitching side. And side note, the Cubs, they're doing so well offensively, they could use some pitching. So as they're looking at the deadline and they're thinking about, I don't want to go into a playoff series where I'm just looking at Imanaga and Boyd and saying, hey, there's my 1-2. I'll go up against anyone. I would assume that what you're seeing and feeling around the clubhouse is they've earned the right in their mind for the front office to go get them pitching help.
I think there's two things. I think if you're looking to make a deep run, I think you're right. They probably could use a dude. Although I'm sure you could put together an argument that if you just went and added two more super stud bullpen arms, that's a method of going about and doing it. I think they could use a dude, but I would say as much of a concern is, look, you still have 75 games left, basically, and you're pitching depth. They don't have a ton of pitching depth. So they've sustained Steele for the year, Imanaga for 45 days. I don't think that they could sustain something else again. They don't have that level of depth. So it's kind of both. If you're trying to win the World Series, yeah, you'd love to go get your hands on a Chris Sale. But at the very least, I would say you need, like you've heard Mitch Keller's name, and like he's solid, and they need depth just in case. Look, Stephen Boyd hasn't thrown over 80 innings. The last time he threw over 80 innings was 2019. So you've got to figure that, there's going to be a space where they're going to need to give him a little bit of a break, something along those lines. So I think it's twofold. You know what I'm saying? That they need a dude up front and they need some depth to shore up. in case somebody were to go down.
But as a front office, we also try to convince ourselves of certain things. Total confirmation bias time. I could go back and tell you, and you'd know the Dodgers won the World Series, and I bet you and I together would have a hard time naming who started each of the games. I remember Walker Buehler was on at the end, but
Yeah.
they had terrible starting pitching issues, and they were able to beat the Yankees in five. But when you're in it in July, you're saying to yourself, what I said is, man, we need what you're calling a dude. We need somebody in here to make that run. But that's why baseball is so great, because the Cubs have to do something. We agree, but it's going to be both. But I think we'd be fair to say, as a wait to see that we do on Nothing Personal, the Cubs are going to add pitching before July 31st. Is it safe to say that the clubhouse will be disappointed the night of the 31st if pitching is not added?
Yeah, I think probably. I mean, but I don't, yeah, I think that's what people expect. I think that's what people expect. I can't speak on behalf of the clubhouse. You're asking me to guess. That's my guess. But they're in a good spot to fortify their team. Your point on the Dodgers is a good one. The Dodgers in the playoffs last year did not have a single pitcher on their postseason roster that threw as many as 100 innings for them.
That's
in the regular
stat.
season. Now, Jack Flaherty threw more than that, but they did not have a guy who threw as many as 100 innings on their postseason roster, through 100 innings for them.
When we were doing postseason rosters and thinking about putting the regular season roster, then thinking about postseason, even if you're marginally in the race, you're thinking about it. But you're always trying to get at least two. This is the old days, but I guess now 100 innings, you're happy. We were trying to slot in who's going to get us 200, who's going to get us 175. And now it's just become, you can't find. It's like a 300 hitter. They're just hard to find, these pitchers who give you depth. I want to talk about the state of the game a little bit, Boog. You've been broadcasting. Is it a full quarter of a century? Is it more now?
Yeah, well, I mean, my first year was 97, and I was like the pregame, postgame guy. And then it just kind of, went from there. So it's 25 years-ish.
It's more. You're approaching 3 decades, a score and a half broadcasting games. The game has changed a lot recently with what the commissioner's done. We can talk about the pitch clock. I think people have covered that. We can talk about the fact that they're trying to promote more speed. They're trying to get strikeouts down. Number of times you can disengage the rubber. As you look back at the start of your broadcasting career, even going through our RO3 season to now, what is the number one, and this is a semi-setup because I have an answer, what's the number one change, the biggest change that you've seen from sort of start of your career to now?
I don't think you could say that I think there are two main things. I think that when I first started, it was more, and they worked together. It was more of a contact-based league, and you could have, sinker slider guy throwing 90 miles an hour. And so and the ball would be on the ground. The game could be done in 2 hours and 2 minutes. And then we reached a place from like 2014 to 2019 where you'd leave the ballpark and watch a 3-hour and 45-minute game that was 2-1 and nothing happened.
Every day.
Oh my gosh. And so misunderstand what launch angle is and what the hitters are trying to do, but it's different now. And the pitchers are trying to strike people out. So it's velocity, lack of contact, and then thank goodness for the pitch clock.
So to me, it's time of game is the biggest deal breaker. That changed after I was done and I was already in media. And I was thinking back to the number of times I'm pulling into my driveway from Pro Player or Marlins Park at 1 a.m. Like the games would just go forever. And then you had work after. And now, a 2:30 average. And velocity, though, Boog, we were looking for velocity always. You just couldn't find guys who could throw 100 miles per hour. We traded for one Lindstrom. We loved him. He had no secondary pitch. He had no command, but he could throw 100, so we wanted him. Now, if you can't throw 95, 97, you can't be in the bullpen.
Right.
It
But so
really is a huge change.
there's two things. Everybody always wanted velocity, but it's how do you go about getting it? So the first part is honestly back when you guys were in the early 2000s, the main belief was that you couldn't train for velocity. Now everybody knows you can train velocity. So that's a big shift. You can get a guy to throw harder. And then the other thing is they're trying to throw, like Dave Roberts has said to me, I want pitcher X to go out there and throw as hard as he can for as long as he can. So even though you were looking for velocity back then, they weren't using the velocity the way they use their velocity now.
But we agree that by doing that, and Dave Roberts is not alone, you are basically showing reckless indifference toward the health of your pitchers. And I've said it on Nothing Personal and got criticized a little for it, where I said, yeah, if we have a guy who's going to be a free agent, we're going to throw him till his arm falls out. If we have a guy in this first year of a 5-year deal, we're going to protect his arm a little bit more. But this is what all 30 teams are doing. And yet there's tons of money being spent. How do we avoid, like NBA is studying Achilles tears, MLB is studying Tommy Johns. How do we avoid it? To me, it's so obvious why it's happening that it doesn't matter what we study.
Yeah, but the problem is you're going to look from the team standpoint, if you try to back off that, you're going to lose. And if from a player's standpoint, you're going to get hit and not make money. So like there's incentive to throwing harder, and that is you get people out. You get people out, you make more money.
So one of the things we talk about is how to change that. How do you get more contact? How do you get strikeouts down? How do you get pitchers healthier? And I've been standing on an island yelling at the top of my lungs towards Rob and Dan Helm saying, we have to change the arbitration criteria. We have to change how players get paid because people tend to act according to what will benefit themselves. It's like when a salesperson with a commission structure, they say, what can I sell that'll make me the most money? If you took dollars away from hitters for strikeouts, it would impact their 2-strike swing, but we don't in arbitration. We talk about bulk a little bit in arbitration in terms of if there's an injury, you do get a discount, but it's not the way it could be if we really wanted to change it.
The only problem with that is it's penalizing to penalize. Like ultimately, you can strike out and win, and with slug comes strikeouts. So if you're going to tell them to not strike out as much, it may mean you're not going to hit for as much power. So I don't know that quite works, penalizing them for striking out, because so many different components are linked to the performance. Like they're doing it this way for a reason now. You know what I mean? Like they are. People get confused about this, but like this is how you score. The league batting average is 245. It's too hard to go hit. So like they didn't just willy-nilly come up with this. There are a lot of really smart people. They are trying to score right now the most efficient way, and that nets strikeouts offensively.
Well, we've always been doing that, but you end up, with stolen bases is a great example. A lot of teams say we're not going to run ourselves into an out. It's just not worth it to us. It's why sacrifice bunts and moving the runners over, get them in, used to be something that Tony Perez and Andre Dawson would just sit there yelling at me during games. Get them over, get them in. Now it's just get on and wait to jog. But it works for some teams, doesn't work for others. It worked for Sammy Sosa. I saw something on X, Boog, a replay of Beckett's Game 5 in the 2003 LCS when we were down 3-1, and the game that he had, which not enough people talk about. And I was looking at Sammy Sosa, and then I was seeing that he was finally welcomed back to Wrigley just recently. What was that like? Did you interact with him at all?
He was in the booth with us.
I didn't see it. I'm sorry.
No, people were so excited. I mean, look, whatever you want to say, he captured baseball. He made Wrigley a place to be. Um, Holy cow. He was one of the most famous people in the country for a few years and, a compelling figure with the hop and the kiss and all that stuff. And yeah, he was must see TV. So having him come back, I think everybody just felt good about it.
So is there a full detente now? Is he going to be a community leader? Is he going to come and will he dress and do some spring training stuff, or was
He
this
already did.
so this was his first time in Wrigley, and now he's back and everything's fine. So we're past the issue.
We're past the issue.
So the question is, does he want to be more of a full-time? I can't imagine him wanting to be a coach. I speak to a lot of older players who struggle. The one guy, like the anti-Don Mattingly, who loves the younger players, who can relate to them totally. He doesn't have any remorse about, oh, I didn't make this money and these schleppers are making that money. It's hard to find good coaches, good managers. And you guys went to my hometown, Milwaukee, to get your manager. And it was quite a story this offseason. Craig Counsell, the Milwaukee guy, and we, of course, know him from the Marlins and his relationship to our visiting clubby. How is that when now the Brewers did better, actually, in year one, and now they're sort of chasing the Cubs again in year two? Is it something that is thought about, or it's way past?
Which part?
The fact that Counsell really went from Milwaukee to Chicago, he's totally embraced by Chicago. People in Milwaukee are over because the team's doing well, or is it sort of a thing where Counsell pays attention to the Brewers, or is it just past now?
I mean, Counts pays attention to the Brewers because they're good and they're in the division. I think that they will keep, last year and this year, that like they blew the pants off of them. I think. I'll give you like that's a funny one where like this is a good example, and I'd like you to put like ownership hat on, but like he could still be the manager of the Brewers. They just chose not to pay him.
That's true, but what happens is sometimes managers ask he was a free agent, and sometimes you just can't compete with what another team's going to offer
But he
because
can. He could have competed. He just chose not to. Like he actually has the money to pay it.
you're talking about Mark Antonaccio in Milwaukee.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So what we do is we have in our mind what we would want to pay a manager, and that we're just not
Right.
going to go above it no matter what, no matter who
Right.
it
But he
is.
can pay it.
But everybody, I mean, the Cubs you could get paid more for what you do. I could get paid more for what I do. Our companies
Okay,
could
I
afford to
get
pay
it. But
more.
but all I'm saying is like they get mad because he left and took more money. But like if they wanted to keep him, they could have kept him.
I think what happened, it's sort of like Soto. He gets booed at Yankee Stadium in May for 15 years. My
Right.
contention is that if he had signed with the Cubs, it would not have been this level of rancor. The
Yeah, I
fact that he
think you're
went
right.
Yankees Mets has caused it. The fact that it was Brewers Cubs, and don't forget in Milwaukee we've got a thing about Chicago. Like
Yeah,
we
no, I
always
know.
feel like we're inferior to them, even though we're not. So I think that was a bigger issue.
Yeah, I think that certainly plays in, no doubt.
So we have 1 minute left. I want to
What?
end that it's done. I don't want to keep you longer than I said
What
I
a
would.
gas bag I am. Sorry.
No, it's amazing. I want to finish with just because it'll make me smile and hopefully our audience. What's your number one memory from our 2003 World Series run?
Gosh, it's so hard because that's my favorite team ever. I feel so connect. I still talk to guys on that team. I mean, there's a part of it riding the bus to the ballpark, or riding the bus from the hotel. The team would take the bus in the playoffs,
Yes,
like
we
the whole
did.
team. It was weird. They wouldn't get there super early. That was like a Jeff Conine thing. So like the broadcaster bus, like the players were on it, and you'd have people jumping out in New York and giving us the finger, and then in Chicago, Mike Redmond's, we're going along Lakeshore, and Mike Redmond's talking about, the sea, she's a rolling boys, like, and there's so many different aspects. Um, I think I think waiting. One of my stories that I love to tell, one of my favorite stories is we didn't know who we were going to play. It was the first year that the All-Star game gave home field. So the American League had home field. Our series was 1 year or 1 day behind. So we're in Chicago. We were watching game 7 of the ALCS at a hotel. Eventually, Pedro starts to give it up. We get into a bus. We drive to the plane. They will not let us on the tarmac. So we're behind a gate because the game is not concluded and we do not have a place that we are going to. And we're literally sitting there on the bus listening to John Miller call it. And Aaron Boone hits the home run, and it literally is this. And it is gone, and the Yankees are going to the World Series. And the gate is opening, and John hasn't even finished his call, and we're driving onto the tarmac and getting on the plane to fly to New York.
Life's funny, Boog, because that is the story that I tell as well, and people do not believe that it's true. And now that you're saying it, it gives credibility because that is an exactly true story that Aaron Boone hit it. We had Kevin Millar on recently, and he was describing himself at first base watching the ball leave. And he said, I didn't know what was going on. All of a sudden, the game was over. We thought we were going to the World Series. Everything's great. And then it's done. And he's looking at Wakefield, rest in peace, walking off the field. And I said, yeah, we were getting on the tarmac.
Yeah, that's right.
Boog, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate you. Good luck the rest of the way, and I will do this again.
Would love to. Thanks, David.
TV voice for the Chicago Cubs. That's Boog Sciambi. Welcome back to the second hour of Nothing Personal, and we are delighted to welcome Boog Sciambi. And speaking with Boog Sciambi, we did not even get into the reality of the team that he's dealing with the Chicago Cubs. They got 2 all-star starters. So we were talking about Tucker. We were talking about Pete Crow Armstrong. And the Cubs are putting together a situation where the story may be coming out today that you're looking at the starting lineups, and it's a whole big announcement. And we're talking about ESPN, we're talking media, we're talking young players. There's some rookies starting in PCA and Jacob Wilson of the Aths, which I'm sure baseball is thrilled about to have a great young player stuck in Sacramento for the moment. But you think about what the Tigers have, and you look at Javy Baez, where 2 sides of a trade, they're both starting. Pretty amazing. And you think about where the league is. Now you've got Ohtani and Judge, who were the biggest vote getters. They're starting. And then you do this system where there's a vote and then there's a playoff vote where you just have a smaller selection of people you're going to decide who's going to start. And one of the great questions that we are always working on within baseball is, what can we do better? How do we make the All-Star game a better reflection of the season, or a better reflection of what the fans want or what the broadcasters want? How do we stop teams from gaming the system, which we all tried to do by getting our guys in? I mean, Acuna starting, I guess it makes sense. The game's in Atlanta. He's barely played. I think he missed the first 60 or 70 games, and he's going to be there starting, which is what the home team wants, the fans want. And frankly, he's one of the best players, so he should be starting. But this is always a source of tension and excitement, both for players, because many players have provisions in their contract where they get a bigger bonus, not just for being named to an all-star team, but being named a starter. So there's 2 levels that we would put in contracts. One, if you're an all-star, you get $50,000. But if you are voted in by the fans, meaning you are a starter in the game, you could get $75,000 or $100,000. So it matters to the players. And when you look at all of the players, Javy Baez to me is a great example. You may say, oh, he signed the big contract, doesn't really need the money. In fact, every dollar matters to the players, and it should. It matters to all of us. And think about what Javy did. Remember, he was a second baseman as an all-star in 2018. He was a shortstop as an all-star in 2019. And now he's rebounded when I assumed he was finished, and he's going to be starting in the outfield. He's had a tremendous season. The other note is that no matter how poorly your team is playing, it would be hard for you to predict that this would be the year that Lindor would get his first All-Star start as a Met, but that's in fact what's happening. And it's great for a team to have starters. We always wanted it because you get more attention and you just try to put a team together when you're the manager. Now the hard part comes with the reserves being named by Sunday, and you've got the commissioner's office involved. You've got teams involved, which pitchers are available, who's not available. You know you have to get one player for every team, which means, yes, there will be a Colorado Rocky All-Star, and we'll say deserving, not deserving. There's a snub because this team had to have a player in. It's a whole Megillah. I once thought that it shouldn't be that every team had an all-star until I was running a team that really needed an all-star and realized that, no, we want to be represented. It's important to have full representation at an all-star game, whether it used to count or not, which it did, and now it's purely an exhibition game. And so I love what baseball does because that means that every market gets to wait for that moment because they've got a player in the game. There is only one player who's guaranteed, that's too strong, not to play. Do you remember the All-Star game when Bud Selig shrugged his shoulders in Milwaukee and the game was called a tie? And that's what started the now this game counts, as Boog was talking about, with who would get home field advantage in the World Series. The reason is that they ran out of pitching. Now, even though the game doesn't count, what baseball did, and it's brilliant because the game could go 18 innings, though it won't, but it could. There is a pitcher on each team that is told beforehand, you're our guy if we go into extra innings. So other than that, you're not going to get an inning. But if we go extras, you got to be ready to go. And players are told that in advance. And the team is told that in advance because the Major League All-Star coaching staff, which is the coaching staff of the World Series participants of the prior year, they work with the coaching staff of every team. There's a conversation done, not with the position players. You have to actually make an outgoing call if you have an issue with your position player where you only want him to get one at bat and you only want him in the field for one inning. But for every pitcher, you get an incoming call from the All-Star staff where your staff and their staff talks about use of that pitcher. Now, of course, when we had the All-Star game, my view was, let's take all the National League East pitchers, any Mets or Phillies who are on the team, or Expos, doesn't matter, because that's who they were in 03. Let's pitch them like 4 innings, and let's not do our guys at all. But it doesn't really work that way anymore. So the All-Star game is coming up. You've got the reserves that'll be named Sunday. And I must tell you that if you're the Astros and the Phillies, don't be despondent. You're going to be mentioned today, hey, you're the only first-place teams that don't have an all-star starter. And my response to that is the Astros and Phillies are fine because they're in first place. Expansion is one of my favorite topics to talk about. It is a tremendous opportunity to get money if you are a current owner because you get a big expansion fee that is current day cash. It gets paid upfront, and you get that money to use for your payroll. You get it to use it to pay down debt. A lot of leagues are talking expansion right now. You know, baseball is talking it. Hockey was talking it, but then Gary Bettman sort of quashed it. The NBA is talking it, but Adam Silver said, well, we're, Seattle, Vegas, there could be some other markets, but we're not quite there yet. The WNBA went all in on expansion yesterday. And they are going to expand, and they announced this a couple days ago. They're going to expand to 18 teams. They added a team in Cleveland, Detroit, and Philadelphia. That is in addition to 2 other teams that are joining the WNBA, Portland and Toronto. And you know that Golden State's WNBA team just started. So it looks as though the WNBA is increasing at a rate that seems not sustainable and would seem to indicate that everything is butterflies, roses, and unicorns. And as a matter of fact, the players in the WNBA who are currently negotiating a CBA are taking this expansion announcement as proof positive you guys are flowing with cash. Profitability is at an all-time high. Give me my money. The thing is, for the WNBA, that's not the case. An expansion in other leagues can certainly mean that it is a positive indicator to the financial status of teams and the league. But when you are the WNBA, you've been basically a fledgling league for a long time. Your teams are not profitable. They're only worth some money on paper with some limited partners coming in at high valuations. But the reality is they had so few teams when they started this major round of expansion. Their schedule is so, they don't play a lot of games to start with, that what the WNBA is trying to do is just get to a point where they're actually looking and feeling and acting like an actual club, like an actual league, because they signed this new TV deal. That TV deal, which got the players all lathered up saying, hey, this is another example how great everything is. And John Skipper agreed. And I told John Skipper that my view is that the NBA was faking it till they make it with the WNBA. They pegged the TV number at a big growth rate to show how healthy it was with Caitlin Clark and everything else that's going on. But the reality of the numbers wasn't showing it. So, do you think it's a coincidence that the WNBA is expanding where there are already NBA teams? Do you think it's a coincidence that they're expanding around right now current CBA negotiations? Because if the NBA, which is really the majority investor, they're involved the most in the WNBA, if they thought that announcing these expansions and these cities would have a deleterious impact on their CBA negotiations, they wouldn't have done it. The reality is the players can chirp all they want, and boy, have they ever, including the commissioner, who said the demand, and this is not Adam Silver, this is the commissioner of the WNBA, said the demand for women's basketball has never been higher. We are thrilled to welcome Cleveland, Detroit, and Philly to the WNBA family. This historic expansion, keep in mind what I just said, this historic expansion is a powerful reflection of our league's extraordinary momentum, the depth of talent across the game, and the surging demand for investment in women's professional basketball. Why did she say that? Because she wants it to be true. She wants to be able to sit at the negotiating table and use this expansion as actually a meaningful marker as they negotiate how revenue should be shared and how minimum salary should increase and how they should all be making more money. Think about this, though. You're getting some fees, no question. Not like the NBA, not like MLB. But the owners of the WNBA teams are still trying to get back to par. It's not about profit. They're not close to profitability yet. So they're taking these fees as a way to try to get out of the financial hole faster. And what the WNBA players are saying is, because of expansion, we'll have more players. By the way, we want those more players making more and more money. But in fact, it can be argued that unless you know that you've got sponsorship deals that are league-wide that will be increasing disproportionately to the additional teams coming in, meaning we were going to give you $1 million, but now that you're in Cleveland, Detroit, and Philly, we're going to give you $2 million, which means that I can say that $1 million of revenue was incremental to the expansion. You can't say that. I'm not willing to say there's $1 of incremental national revenue or TV revenue because of expansion. I dare say that when the NBA pegged the TV deal where it pegged it for the WNBA, The NBA knew exactly what it was doing. They knew exactly what the network was buying. They knew exactly the number of teams, the number of markets. They knew the partnership with the NBA cities. They were aware this wasn't a plan that just falls out of the air. Expansion is a process. It is a multi-year road, curvy, windy. Players are in for a major, major surprise if they think that it's all of a sudden going to turn into this windfall, because it's not. Wimbledon's underway just across the pond. Wake up early if you dare. Watch some matches. If you're looking for American women, you may not want to turn on the TV, because if you do, you'll notice that they're losing. Top seeds losing. Coco lost first round, destroyed. It wasn't even close. It wasn't the golden set. I don't know if you saw that, Coca. There is a female tennis player whose name, of course, I forgot because we're live, and I didn't tell you I was going to think of this. I didn't know. I know what an immaculate inning is. 9 pitches, 9 strikes, out. In tennis, 24 straight points means you win 6 straight games all at love. That's an immaculate set. And I'd never heard of it, had never seen it. And there was an immaculate set at Wimbledon the other day. But I want to talk about Coco because she said something and she has been up against it since winning the French Open. We did an entire story about what happened with her and Sabalenka at the end when sore loser and how Coco took the high road and did it absolutely perfectly. Well, she admitted after losing her first round match that in fact she may not have done it perfectly. She said that her, and this is a quote, "I feel like mentally I was a bit overwhelmed with everything that came afterwards," talking about winning the French Open. "I didn't feel like I had enough time to celebrate and also get back into it. But it's the first time in this experience," she said, "coming off a win and having to play at Wimbledon. I definitely learned a lot of what I would and would not do again." It made me immediately think of players who win the Grand Slam, meaning they win the Australian Open, then turn around and win the French Open, then Wimbledon, and then win the US Open. That's the Grand Slam. You do it in one calendar year. Hard to do. A career Grand Slam, and that's winning it any year during the course of your career. Hard to do. Why? Because Coco, whether she's won a Grand Slam before, which she had, whether she is the highest earning female athlete, which I believe she is. Caitlin Clark may have passed her. I don't have the numbers, but she's right up there, top 2 or 3, guaranteed. The pressures and strains on her didn't really change after the French Open, because the pressure of being at the top, whether you're the number 2 seed or the number 1 seed, whether you win at the French Open or lose in the finals, the pressure that she has to do the right thing, to not just prepare physically and mentally for your on-court responsibilities, but all of the off-court responsibilities as well. For her to acknowledge that she was overwhelmed after winning the French Open, think about the level of overwhelmed that actually is. Because think about her day-to-day life when she is carrying the torch for millions of people, when she is carrying the torch for women, for players, for black players. Think about everything that she deals with every day. And then for her to have the strength to acknowledge that winning the French Open caused her to actually have a totally different level of anguish, a different level of busyness, a different level of distraction. And that's winning the French Open. Here's what's going to happen going forward. And I say this with love for Coco because I do. If she had won the first round match, she wouldn't have had that quote. But if she had lost in the second round, she would have had the quote. If she lost in the finals, she wouldn't have had the quote at all. When you lose in the first round as a number 2 seed and you're coming off winning the last Grand Slam and you just get completely outplayed, it makes perfect sense. It's not that she had to prepare in terms of, oh, I got to get ready for grass because I was just on clay. I didn't get enough shots in. She's been playing tennis enough that the reality of what she's discussing is the pressure that is put on these young players. Do we remember, just for a second, how old exactly do you think she is? Just if you had to guess Coco's age. Would you say that she can drink? Would you say that there's extra pressure on her coming off the retirement of Serena Williams to take over the mantle? Does it make you realize what Serena and Venus Williams actually had to go through and the amount of pressure they had and the amount of winning they did? And to follow in those footsteps, to carry the torch that burned so bright for that long? It's overwhelming. It's not about winning the French Open. It's about her daily life, like waking up in the morning. So she is a 21-year-old. She just, in case you didn't Google this during the show, because we're live, and you don't realize that she's just allowed to drink in the last 3 months. That's it. 21 years old. And our expectation of these young athletes is to be perfect. Forget committing crimes. Forget having a mugshot. Forget your dating life. Forget all of that. You're expected on court, off court at 21 to perform in a way that is not normal for people of that age. There's a reason there's age restrictions in leagues. By the way, there's a reason why so many young tennis players get burnt out. And when we see a young tennis player be good for as long as the big three was good, whether it's Jokic or Federer or Serena or Venus, etc., or Nadal, you don't realize that the burnout that takes place is on us. It's on sponsors. It's on audience. It's on fans who expect things out of these players that simply, it's too much to expect. So let's give Coco a break. Let's get her ready for the U.S. Open and say, hey, winning another Grand Slam, U.S. Open, Flushing, hell yeah. I want to end the show today with a quick note to my old team because some of you may think I'm a little too hard or that I'm not excited for the Miami Marlins. They had an 8-game winning streak. And I remember the last 8-game winning streak because I was there. It was 2008. And it just got broken when they lost yesterday to the Twinkies 2-1. And it made me think about winning streaks and losing streaks and when you dig yourself a hole and what it takes to get out of the hole and how you can actually get your team back into playoff talk when you have been playing terribly for a period of months. Is it one good streak? The Marlins had their best streak, tied it, of their franchise history. They passed the Braves in the standings, and they're 7 games back of the wild card behind several teams, which means they're only 2 games back from that magic 5. The Marlins now have a choice to make. When you have a winning streak in June, the way the Marlins just did, and you're getting close to the deadline, it is a very uncomfortable position to be in because they were obvious sellers. Now you've got players and a fan base who are saying, wait a minute, we got a shot here. I don't know if we should trade Sandy, especially taking less than what we would have gotten had he been pitching well. We need to get overwhelmed when the responsible thing to do is actually to be the seller. But when the clubhouse does something like does an 8-game winning streak and you are sniffing at the periphery of the possibility of a playoff spot, it's actually a total nightmare for the front office because you have to go back to meetings and you have to say to your fan base, all right, we may add because it's just business. Holiday tomorrow. Happy July 4th. We're back live Monday. This is Nothing Personal.